All right, let's chat about the upcoming slate of games that are going to be taking place this weekend. We've got a double header on Saturday and a quadruple header on Sunday. That is a massive amount of games. Let's go through the slate. Portland Thorns FC going to host Houston Dash Saturday, kickoff at 6 p.m. Eastern. Angel City FC versus Kansas City Current, Saturday, kickoff at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. And then for Sunday, North Carolina Curves versus San Diego. That starts at 2 p.m. Gotham FC versus Louisville. That starts at 5 p.m. Oil Rain versus Washington Spirit. That starts at 6 p.m. And Orlando Pride versus Chicago Red Stars. That kicks off at 7 p.m. So definitely going to have to have multiple devices over the course of this weekend for sure to take a look at everything. Let's start with this first slate of games, Lisa. Portland Thorns versus Houston Dash. Portland Thorns coming off that midweek match. Houston Dash getting a standard week. Who are you looking at in this one and why?
So Houston doesn't have a midweek game. They did not play this past Wednesday. Because of that, they've had a little bit more rest. However, Portland Thorns, they got a goal over Washington Spirit. They have a lot of power. I mean, traditionally, I think I would say Portland. I would just give Portland the upper hand in this match and kind of go from there. However, Portland's dealt with a little bit of back-to-back play, and this is a very quick turnaround from Wednesday to Saturday for this match. Portland number 4 in the standings, Houston number 6 in the standings. I'm still going to give it to Portland, though. I have Portland in this match taking the win over Houston Dash. This game is going to be played at home for Portland at Providence Park, so that gives them the upper hand as well. Yeah. And that's a tough place for Houston to come in and play, but I'm hoping for some goals.
I feel you on that. Yeah, I feel you on that for sure. I think, there's an added benefit to even though it's kind of a quick turnaround. If you're Portland Thorns, you're not on the road to travel. For this type of match, you get to stay at home. You get to go ahead and go through your normal processes that you would ahead of a match week. I'm sure the coaching staff and Wilkinson are looking at things, and maybe there's less training or more rest, in between this. So when I'm looking at these two teams, we're also noticing a little bit of an early trend here, I think, to sort of kick off the season. There are teams that are coming off of heavy match load type of weeks, and they're coming in and maybe looking maybe more informed, or they look like the team that is not missing the step to kind of start off their games. So I'm looking at a Portland Thorns side that's coming off a quick turnaround that's gonna perhaps take it to a Houston Dash side that's had a little bit more time to kind of prepare for some things. I want to see in this game multiple goals. I'm just gonna say it.
Same.
We haven't had a multi-goal game from Portland in a while. And I think they've got too much talent there to have these narrow score lines. I'm going with Portland, but I also want to say I want more goals, and I hope that they get them in this game. Who are you going to be looking at in terms of like maybe an individual battle, Lisa? Is there anyone in this one that you want to have a breakout game?
Honestly, I want Morgan Weaver for Portland to get on the board, because this is a player that has moments of greatness, but I want a full 90 if she plays however many minutes Weaver is on the pitch. I want her to be lethal in last night's match for Portland against Washington. She came on in the second half and she did produce, and she was able to be a threat and be an influence in the attacking end. But for Morgan Weaver, I want more. I want her to lean on Sophia Smith, lean on Christine Sinclair, lean on those outside backs to whip balls in for Weaver, and for Morgan Weaver to find the back of the net.
I'm with you on that. I like that. Let's move ahead to this next match coming up, make our picks. Angel City FC versus Kansas City Current. Two teams that did not have a midweek match in this one. They're going to get a fresh look at each other. We're making a note of that some of the expansion sides are getting their first looks at teams that have already been a little bit more established. But I'm a little bit curious to how this game in particular is going to play out, Lisa, because it's a Kansas City side that only has a year of NWSL competition under their belt. So it's kind of like an expansion side versus, a freshman team versus maybe a sophomore team. And I don't mean that in any type of disrespectful way, but I'm very curious as to how this match is going to play out, because it's the first time that these two teams are going to get a real look at each other in regular season action. Who are you picking in this one and why?
Kansas City traveling to Los Angeles to take on Angel City in this match. Kansas City coming off of a 2-2 draw to Orlando. A late game penalty kick is the one that essentially lost this for Kansas City, or went from winning it to tying this match against Orlando, which was sloppy. But we've seen really good pieces being put together by Kansas City in this regular season. Throughout the Challenge Cup, they won their Central region. They can score goals. They have a number of rookies that have stepped up and just continuously gotten experience. However, Angel City playing at home, we know playing at Bank of California Stadium is a huge bonus for Angel City, coming off of a win over reigning NWSL champions in the Washington Spirit. And frankly, they've got Kristen Press. So that's something that is just huge for Angel City. This match being played in Los Angeles gives Angel City the upper hand. I see this one as a draw. I do, because I think Kansas City is going to come out and get goals, get on the board. They have a lot of power up front. They have a lot of mentality to be this team that can be a bit of a wrecking ball, that can throw teams on their tail and give them a spin. But Angel City, they've had a lot of possession build up throughout this regular season, that they can keep the ball, they can be a threat, and they have Kristen Press and Simone Charlie up top. We'll see where Tyler Lucy slots in. We saw her in the back line before. Will she continue to be up top? June Endo has been a huge force for Angel City. Yeah. I see lots of goals, but ultimately a tie in this match.
I love that you want this one to be a shootout. Listen, I would love for this one to be a shootout as well, because I'm not too sure if people would peg this one maybe as the one to be kind of the shootout game. But there's a lot of strong attacking pieces for both sides of the ball in this one. I think it's just a matter of, again, who's going to be available, what it's going to look like. I even think for Angel City on the defensive side of things, that if they see the return of Allie Riley to the back line there, that can change things.
Which I think
for this team. This was a player who was out under a COVID protocol, and it's been a couple weeks here that the club has sort of navigated things on the pitch, in her absence. But a huge piece to their back line, captaining the pitch when she is out there. So I think that'll maybe present some challenges for an attack in Kansas City that I think we're still a little unsure of what it's going to look like. We've been high on rookie Elise Bennett, but she has been listed as questionable, and we finally saw her get in last week's match in the second half and immediately have an impact. We're talking about a goal, an assist, and this is a game that I'm sure Kansas City is looking at and going to say, this is a game that we should have had all 3 points, but it did not work out that way. I think those are the type of games that can perhaps be a little bit of that motivating factor, the chip that you carry when you're looking for that little bit of extra added oomph to sort of take into an away game, quite frankly. So we'll see what happens in this one. When I'm looking at this one, Lisa, I think I'm leaning a little bit more towards Kansas City. So I think you and I are both going to be going for the Current in this one. But when I'm looking at breakout performances, I still have players that I want to have strong games on both sides of the pitch. If Elise Bennett is available and ready to go in this game, I want to see a continued development with her. I'm sure she will be an added component to that attack. So hopefully she is available for the Kansas City side to go ahead and choose for selection. And when I'm looking at Angel City, I'm looking at Simone Charlie. So I would love to see these two players on the pitch and have strong matches for both of their clubs. But we're both going Kansas City, so we'll see how that.
I'm going to draw.
Oh, really? Are you going to go draw?
I'm going to draw.
Kansas City. Okay, well, I'm going Kansas City. I want to pick a winner in this one. I'm going to
shoot out, and I'm going to stick with the draw.
I respect it. All right. Well, speaking of draws, we'll get to this one right now. Let's talk about this next match. OL Reign versus Washington Spirit. I think I've tipped my literal hat a little bit of what I'm viewing this match to sort of roll out with. We're going to have a very early rematch between these two sides, these two teams. A lot of familiarity between them already. They've played a Challenge Cup semifinal between each other. They have played their first round of a regular season against each other. And now we've already got their second and final regular season match between the two of them. OL Reign finally going to get to host at Lumen Field in this one. Lisa, when you're looking at these two teams, who are you picking and why?
This is so hard because Washington is coming off of a really tough match on Wednesday versus Portland, 1-1. And they look tired. There was a lot of player rotation in that. We heard some player injuries happening in their midfield unit. We saw lots of different rotations with Anna Helferty being pulled to the back line. Trinity Rodman, she didn't look herself. She wasn't as aggressive in the attack as she usually has been, and she was a little bit more subdued in her presence on the pitch against Portland. I think the rivalry between Washington and OL Reign runs deep. And that makes the blood boil between both of these sides because of how everything has kind of unfolded for these teams. So Washington, they're coming off of this tight draw against Portland 1-1. And OL Reign, they're coming off of a tight draw as well against Portland, 0-0 in that match. And before that, OL Reign, they had lost to Washington Spirit. So the quick turnaround in playing these teams again, OL Reign, they have that bitter taste in their mouth after being on such a high, getting so much consistent play, winning a lot of games back to back, and then hitting this slump where Washington Spirit put them on their heels and took the Challenge Cup from them and then a regular season win. However, Washington, they're coming off of a really quick turnaround. I give the upper hand to OL Reign playing at home. I think OL Reign is going to win this one with Rose Lavelle that they have and the other powerful players in the midfield. OL Reign's going to win this battle against Washington, just based on what I've seen from Washington. Hopefully they drop Ashley Sanchez back in the midfield, Helferty up higher. That'll help things out for Washington. But I have OL Reign taking the win in this one. You already tipped your hat, but hear why you got a draw.
Listen, I we do this all the time. We talk off mic, we text each other, we chat a little bit about it, about how what we're leaning towards or what we're feeling. And this is another one of those games where I kept going back and forth. I made arguments in my head for the Reign. I made arguments in my head for the Spirit, how things were going to look. What I do know is that we're going to get another competitive game.
Oh yeah,
because these two teams, they have a rivalry. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This has been growing for quite some time, and I love it. I'm here for these types of organic rivalries that sort of just kind of grow naturally in a league. And I think it's typical to sort of take a look at regional areas and just assume that there are going to be these rivals. But I love a great West versus East rivalry, and I think that's what we're going to see in this one. I think we're going to get good scenes in Lumen Field, hopefully, for this one. But I was going back and forth, and I think in this one, I'm still leaning towards the draw. I'm going to lean into that draw. I hate to do it. I love to pick a winner, and I love to pick a loser, but there was just too many good arguments, I think, on both these sides. I'm a little curious of who and the minute management and the player rotation, or what that's going to look like on the Washington Spirit side of things. Are Andy Sullivan and Kelly O'Hara going to be available in this match? IDK. Like, we are doing this ahead of an availability report. But these, again, are two players who have been navigating through some injuries. And even if they are available, what does that look like? Does it look like a 90 minutes? Does it look like 60 minutes? Does it look like 15 minutes that these players can come on and provide some type of spark off the bench? And then OL Reign, they've got the longer rest, obviously, between these two teams. They've got the home field advantage, but I'm looking at their attack. I'm looking at their middle third, and I'm looking at all of these really good pieces for this team. But during these last stretch of weeks, we've been seeing either scoreless draws or narrow results from this team. If we do end up seeing a dub from OL Reign, I want it to be a significant scoreline. I need to see a multi-goal game. It doesn't have to be a lot. It can even be a 2-0, 2-1. I would love to see it, but I got to see it happen from this Reign side, especially if they're coming off a little bit of a rest. So I know that there were some early frustrations for the Reign side to kind of start off things in this 2022. But I would imagine that head coach Laura Harvey and this group have obviously regrouped a little bit, and maybe they're looking at this one on the calendar saying, this is the one where we're going to get it all back and snatch it back and go on a little bit of a run. So while I'm excited to see it, I'm still going to keep this one as a draw, because I don't care what kind of quick turnaround it is, long, quick. I don't think you can ever count out a Hatch, a Sanchez, or Rodman to make some magic happen on the pitch. So I think we're going to get a draw in this one. And that's what I'm going with.
All it takes is one moment, one mental lapse defensively, and those players, Hatch, Rodman, Sanchez, they can jump on it and they can really capitalize on that. And that's all it takes is one distinct moment. All right, I love it.
Yeah, let's move on. Let's move on and take a look at some picks and previews for the rest of the games. Teams that have games in hand. Let's take a look at North Carolina Courage versus San Diego Wave FC. This one, I don't know if I went super back and forth on this one too much, and I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there and give my pick first. Lisa, I'm going to go with North Carolina Courage. This one, even after the midweek result that they just had and the efforts that they just put, even with the struggles that they've had with players out on COVID protocol, I do believe they're going to perhaps get some of these players back because this game takes place on Sunday. I'm going with North Carolina Courage in this one. How about you?
I agree with you. I'm going to go with North Carolina in this one too. It, of course, depends on availability, player personnel availability. But if we have Caitlin Rowland back and Casey Murphy still questionable, who do you think gets the start between those two?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I think it just depends on how Murphy is feeling.
Yeah.
After that kind of first outing that she had midweek. I know that Caitlin Rowland is a player who's been in the Courage system for some time. She's a player that they made a move for to get back into their program. But Casey Murphy, since she has made her arrival to the Courage, has been the starting goalkeeper for this team. She has been in multiple United States women's national team camps. She has a lot of clout around her right now, quite frankly. And just putting it quite simply, she is a good goalkeeper.
Oh, yes.
So I would imagine that if you have this type of caliber of goalkeeper who is able to go, you would play them. But was this start issued out of necessity, out of player circumstance? You know, there's a little unclarity there. So if Rowland is able to go back and to net, and Murphy is actually maybe only somewhere between a 60 to 80%, I think that maybe with the quick turnaround, you give this game to Rowland.
I agree entirely. It so much depends on Casey Murphy's availability and how she is feeling. But I am thinking that North Carolina is going to have a lot of their players back in this match that were out on COVID protocol. I agree. I think North Carolina gets the upper hand over San Diego. San Diego also a quick turnaround from their midweek match that they just played against Racing Louisville, and they were handed a loss in that match. So both of these teams coming off of losses, but I still give the upper hand to North Carolina. So we're both going Courage in this win.
We're both going Courage in this win, and that's not to take it away anything from San Diego, but I just think that this run that they went on to start their regular season was impressive, and I'm still impressed by it. I shouldn't use the past tense. I mean, they leveled things out a little bit in this match that they just had against Racing Louisville, and were maybe fell just short of potentially snatching a point away from that one. But the win streak was snapped, and sometimes that hits a little bit of a reset button, like I mentioned. But I don't know if that is going to happen in this game. Again, we're talking about expansion sides that are getting looks at more established NWSL clubs as the regular season goes on. And this is an opportunity for San Diego, I'm sure, to take a look at and say, how can we sort of address the opportunity in front of us to go ahead and maybe shock some people. Maybe they look at a North Carolina Courage side that has had a lot of success in their past, and quite frankly, recently with their Challenge Cup win. And maybe they want to, circle this one and say, this is a match that we want to have a strong performance in. But I think with the quick turnaround, I think with another opportunity on the road, I'm not too sure if they're going to have all of the pieces there, because now San Diego is being presented with the challenges that a lot of other clubs are being presented with: player rotation, minute management, and stuff like that. So travel on top of that with the legs, right? And then we'll see how that plays out. So I'm giving the edge to North Carolina, and I like that we went to Courage for both of us here. We'll see how that plays out. Another team that we haven't seen in a little while, New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC going to face Racing Louisville FC. Lisa, we haven't seen Gotham FC. They had their home opener postponed against North Carolina Courage a couple weeks or so ago due to the fact that there was the COVID protocol for both sides of the pitch here when they were going up against North Carolina Courage. They had 4 players out. I believe the Courage had about 6 or 7 out. So the game was called. It said, hey, we're going to postpone it and reschedule it. So Gotham has not been able to see some NWSL action in quite some time. And they're going to be going up against a Racing Louisville side that just got a victory over San Diego Wave FC. So when you're looking at these two teams, tell me who you're picking and why.
So you have to look at Gotham and their regular season. Yes, they're coming off of a bye week, technically, with that postponement. And they started the regular season with a bang, 3-0 over Orlando Pride. And then the next week turned around and it was handed to them, 4-0 against San Diego Wave. They lost that one. So pretty hot and cold from Gotham FC. Did this off week and the bye week with the postponement, dealing with a bit of COVID protocol, help them or hurt them? Because some teams, they need those games to stay consistent, to stay on top of it. Honestly, I don't think that's Gotham, because throughout the Challenge Cup, they were consistently hot and cold. If that's an oxymoron, if you ever heard one, consistently hot and cold. But that's exactly what Gotham was. So I'm thinking that an off week has truly helped Gotham be able to work on some of the things that they need to work on, focus on them, go against consistent competition in training every day against their own teammates and opponents in that sense. And now, as they have to face on a team in Racing Louisville that is coming off of a midweek match, and that Gotham is playing at home, they'll play at Red Bull Arena. I think Gotham could get a win out of this one. And that is not to say anything against Racing Louisville, because if any team can go into Red Bull and beat a team like Gotham, it's going to be Racing Louisville, with their set piece opportunities, with their threats in the front, with Jess McDonald and the possession that they've been able to build out of the back. And Katie Lund in goal has done tremendous for Racing Louisville. I just think that Gotham, being a team that's coming off of a lot of training, no game last week, they have the upper hand in this one, especially with fresh legs, no travel, and no midweek game against Racing Louisville. So I give it to New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC.
I respect it. Listen, I hate to do it, Lisa, but I've got this one pegged as a draw too.
Wow.
It's too much back and forth for me to go in it. Maybe that's a safe pick or not. I usually like to go bold and just pick a winner, pick a loser, but there's, like you mentioned, there's just been way too much inconsistency from Gotham for me. And Racing Louisville, I think, can sometimes be a little inconsistent in times as well. But I feel like I've seen a little bit more from this Racing Louisville side to sort of have enough to say that they might come out and look a certain type of way in this match. They are going to be on the road. They are coming off of a quick turnaround, but I'm not too sure if I'm looking at that as a negative for them. And perhaps this is a game that might come down to something like set pieces. And if it does, that's a scary position to be in if you're the opposition going up against Racing Louisville, because they show that they can absolutely capitalize on those moments. I'm also looking at perhaps maybe a more defensively organized shape from both of these teams here.
Yes.
We're seeing Louisville, in my opinion, kind of come off of a game where they can point to and say, we did some really good things here defensively. Let's try to make sure that we keep this going. When you're looking at a Gotham FC side, helped and anchored by somebody like a Caprice Didasco, you're looking, I think, at maybe 2 back lines that are going to try to present some challenges for the attacks on both sides of the pitch here. And I think because of that, it might do a little bit of canceling out of some things here, which is why I think we might get a draw. And I also think it might be a narrow draw. I don't anticipate this one being a shootout at all, but hey, I would love to come on here and talk about how wrong I was. Last one, Lisa, we've got Orlando Pride versus Chicago Red Stars. Tell me who you're picking in this one and why.
I have Chicago Red Stars in this match. I know that is music to your ears to hear that, but Chicago traveling to Orlando, they're going to be playing at Exploria Stadium. Chicago, no midweek game for them, so they've had a bit of rest. And also, I'm hoping to see the return of Mallory Pugh. She's been out now for a handful of games with concussion protocol. She has been training But can we get her back in a game? Can we get some minutes for Pugh? How the midfield looks for Chicago, that's a little bit of a question mark as well. Morgan Gautrat has been out with a bit of injury. Any updates from you on that, Sandra, before I'm
not as of right now.
Okay.
Yeah, not as of right now. When we spoke to Chris Petroselli ahead of that previous game for the Red Stars, he mentioned that was maybe a week too soon for a player like Mal Pugh. So maybe this upcoming week isn't a week too soon for somebody like Mal Pugh. If she is available, I think that changes things for this Red Star side immediately. Quite frankly, even if she's unavailable for this one, I think maybe there's some unknowns here for the Orlando Pride that might go against them a little bit. So we're looking at Chicago Red Stars teams that they're not too sure if they're going to face a Mal Pugh. And these two new pieces that they've got, well, one new piece and a returning piece for Chicago. They're going to eventually welcome in Chelsea Darber coming from the A League. And then we've got Sarah Lubert making her return from loan after she had spent nearly 2 years or about 18 months or so in Liga MX Femenil with Club America. And we're seeing the return of her for this from loan for the Chicago Red Stars team. And I think for Orlando Pride, if you're looking at things, there's not a lot of footage or film to go off of if you're looking at these two new attacking pieces that are about to be reintegrated for this Chicago Red Stars team. On the other side of that, these are two new players who haven't played with this 2022 side. How is that going to look for Chicago? Has there been enough time in training? Has there been enough, opportunities for these players to kind of get reintroduced to things and get a little bit familiar with the Chicago Red Star side and how they're trying to play? So that is an argument that can maybe go against them as well. We're not too sure if we're actually going to see them within this match. We'll see, but we do know one thing: Orlando Pride's got Sydney Leroux, and we know that she can make things happen.
She definitely can. And what we've seen from Orlando is that they've got a great high press. That's clearly something that they've worked on, that they talk a lot about, and that they focus on. That's how they've gotten goals. It's how they've gotten quick goals early in the game, because it's a high press, forcing teams to try to build out of the back, or if they go long, looking to win it immediately in the midfield. And I'm expecting to see that again. We saw minute management between players like Leah Pruitt, Jan's daughter, Darian Jenkins in this midweek action. So will they get the start again this week alongside Leroux and players like that? I'm not sure. I'm thinking that we will, though. However, Chicago's a team that can build out of the back. That's something that Chris Petroselli loves to do, is possess. He talked so much about how, coming from the collegiate game in Southern Methodist University, it was so hot that his team couldn't run. They couldn't just chase and transition. They had to possess the ball and let the ball do so much of the work. And that's what he wanted to bring to this Chicago team. And now is a chance that Chicago will be tested. Can they build out of the back consistently? Can they break down a high press with a lot of quick, smart defenders on that counter press in Leroux, Jenkins, Leah Pruitt? That becomes a great outlet for the Pride. And that's really the test. And those are the moments that I'm going to be watching at: the high press and how Chicago can break it down. I think Chicago can do it, though. I honestly think that they can break it down in a variety of ways, switching the point of attack, breaking that first line of defense with a great through ball, and then turning and going with the power they have up top, whether it's Ava Cook, hopefully Mallory Pugh is back. We'll see kind of how that unrolls. Ella Stevens as well, a huge threat for them.
We'll see. We're both going to Chicago on this one. We'll see how it plays out Saturday and Sunday. Make sure you tune in to NWSL action. But shout out to UEFA Women's Champions League. The final will also be taking place on Saturday at 1 p.m. You can check out all the action on DAZN's YouTube. Barcelona versus Leon. Make sure you let us know who you got in this one, and make sure you tune in. I'm sure it's going to be a thrilling match, and we'll take some time to chat about it when it all takes place.